Hello and welcome to KamenRider Blackman. Yeah, that's right. For this review, I am prepared. I have pizza and fries and a soda right below me because today it's going to be another long one as we will be reviewing, or I will be reviewing, KamenRider Agito. And by the way, first of all, first things first, this review I actually attended on finishing up Agito around say last month. And so with this coming out in the first week of March, first of all, sorry, but it's not too late and but it is very not even soon, it's very late by a month. But I'm sorry, but now I'm here to review the said sequel of KamenRider Kuga, to which more I will get into once I get into the show. Speaking of which, let me get myself energy first. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. I gotta keep in mind to do jump cuts while I'm eating. But let's officially get on to Agito, starting off with episode 1, The Warrior's Awakening. And before we meet any important characters, we are introduced to an ancient puzzle on a shore, which leads us right into our first set of characters. Now, in story, it's been 2 years since the events of Kuga, and the unidentified life form squadron has been created to deal with such matter. I can believe that since the police had effective firepower enough to kill a monster at the end of Kuga, and they probably had a lot left over to spare. But anywho, for our first set of characters, we meet our first official secondary rider, KamenRider G3. He is a man-made Kamen Rider with a man-made suit to combat. Now, with that said, let's talk about G3. Alright, so Kamen Rider G3. Let's see. His standard suit. It's not. It's all right. It's not terrible. I don't know why. For some reason, before a long time ago, I wasn't a big fan of the suit. But looking at it now, this is all right. This is okay. This suit is very mechanical. And while I'm still talking about it, it's blue because police, and it has the horns on top because based off of Kuga, of course. But now, about our secondary rider, the G3 user is Makoto Hikawa, a police officer who works with the anti-unidentified life form squad and is testing out the suit to see if it's ready for battle. Now, working with Makoto are Sumiko Ozawa, the genius behind the G3 system and the captain of the team, and Omuro, who is a monitor. So, now, before we meet any more characters, we don't know, we don't now, but we get a hint of the monsters of the season, the lords, which are coming off the Garangi in terms of origin, because they were around back then as the same time as the lords. And crap, laptop. Ah, back to where I was. Anyway, back to what I was saying. There are some things in common between the Lords and the Garangi, to which, for starters, they were around the same time. And one thing's first, in terms of origins, it's because, as well as each other, but sign we get. Okay, here's something. One sign we get from the monsters of this season is that here's one fact for where they actually differ from the Garangi, to where it starts from where one monster that starts off the season basically kills an entire family. And there's a reason for that. And so we're starting off pretty dark, just like Kuga. And I do not blame anyone that's seen this show, because seeing how some people die early on is just very horrific and scary. But in this time, G3 witnesses and engages the monster. He surely gets his ass handed to him. And the first time around, I don't blame him, because the suit, in my opinion, is more restrictive and it's more robotic. And it is, but before the first monster of the series, we see kills him, which is the first monster that we see of the season is a jaguar with a yellow scarf, and a black and gold figure appears, which happens to be our main rider, KamenRider Agito, and he just walks through the monster in his first battle and leaves, looking mysterious. And so, moving on now to episode 2. The first episode isn't bad, nor is it slow. It's just pretty quiet, while the two gravitating things are seeing people get murdered and stuffed in the trees, and Agito's debut. Oh, and I almost forgot to talk about the opening, because it doesn't play in episode 1. And so, right now, let's talk about the first and the second opening, because this show has 2. I'm more of a personal fan of, say, the first opening, because it feels a lot more hype. It feels a lot more structure to build up hype, while the second opening, it's predictably drumming up the hype. But yeah, I really like the opening of this show. I really like the 2 songs, but I still do like the openings, though. They're both good songs in my opinion, but for this show, I favor the first opening a lot more. I don't think they should have changed it. Now, ready to go, count 0, KamenRider Agito. There's a reason why I made my top 10 best Kamen Rider openings list. But now, moving on to episode 2, let's talk about 2 important characters. One is Shoichi Tsugami, our main rider, and Ryo Ashihara. Both these guys alone share something in common of getting headaches that appear. Now, here's the thing. Whenever an unknown, which is what the police prefer to the monsters in this season, are active and are about to kill someone, Shoichi's growing into his way of knowing when monster attacks are. That's Shoichi's pain, while Ryo's are more actually pain related and also transformative. And so, our main rider, Shoichi, is an amnesiac too. He was discovered washed up washed up on the beach one day, unconscious, and eventually was taken in by a girl named Mana and her family that consists of her little cousin, who is a little shit, she's just a brat, and her uncle. Now, one small thing about Mana is that while she is the girl of the show, she actually has a superpower of seeing stuff. Like the only way to describe it is by like if you want to let me think. How do I describe her power? She's an Esper, basically. That's the brilliant word. She's an Esper. She can feel an item or she can feel an item and find its pass, or if you're holding up a card that's facing this way and right behind it is like the number of clubs or something, she'll see what it actually is. I don't know what her power is called, but I think it actually is Esper. But yeah. But so, the very next time Shoichi becomes Agito, we see a flashing light from his waist that seems like his belt's power is taking over, because the next time he becomes Agito, he, he he's his mind's out of it. His mind's like out of it, and he's consciously fighting. So now let's talk about his base form, ground form. Ground form looks amazing. I really like this is a I can be maybe a little biased about this suit because black and gold are two of my favorite colors. But not only that, it's black, gold, and silver, and it just makes everything look fantastic. And another thing about it, I like the shoulders. I really love the head. The one most interesting thing to me about this suit is honestly the chest, because like to me the chest is just so interesting that I don't even know how to describe it. But I like the shoulder pads. And I forgot one more thing. Oh my god! Now I almost complete. And good thing I remembered for this. And it's good thing that I remember this fact alone. Agito is our first dragon themed Kamen Rider. He is based off ground form is based off of a European dragon. So, good interesting fact to learn there. And while I'm at it, while I'm at it, Agito, in the second episode, it's also revealed that he has multiple forms. So, excuse me, we're going to talk about them now instead of talking about them when they show up in episodes, because they're filler, basically. Anywho, storm form and flame form. And for the pictures that I'll be showing up here in the video, like storm forms, the blue form, flame form, the red form. And let me get this off my mind first about flame form. Like, the red and gold together look pretty forced, in my opinion. But storm form, it looks perfectly fine. I think it's because that shade of blue, as well as blue and gold, just looks so royal together. But the weapons that he gets in both those forms alone, they're also very nice. In flame form, he gets a sword. And that's right, in flame form, he gets a sword. And in storm form, I think he gets some type of halberd staff. I think the name of the weapon is. I'm not too sure. But yeah, I am a bit more biased towards. But if I'm talking about his other forms for a moment right now, I do personally like storm form. Yeah. Like, at first I thought it was a little weird that for his other forms, they're just a change of color in the chest. but I've grown to like it. And so, Agito beats both monsters in this episode and then attacks G3 for no blatant reason. And that ends episode 2. And now, on to episode today's. Shoichi is finally able to come to his senses, and when he's transformed, he is terrified. Like, he is seeing himself transformed and realizing about his fighting. He just, like, he stops one moment and realizes, like, what the fuck? Dude. Like, it spooked him up. Like, it must have spooked him out a bit. And so now he comes to slowly accept what he is to do, like, for good. Now he now realizes what he is to do good. There's plenty of mystery here swimming around that connects everyone together, because that's a fact alone about the show that I'm just throwing out there. Because everyone's connected in some form of way. But once again, moving on, episode 6, we now get some attention paid at. Now we now have some attention on our tertiary writer, Rio, who has in 3 episodes been in the hospital and has quit college because he is showing signs and has been in pain from his migraines. And now we get some backstory on him. We know he was a swimmer in college, and turns out he used to have a girlfriend who he broke up with and then got back together with during the time her father was just murdered by a monster, thus triggering him into becoming KamenRider Gills. Now to talk about Gills' suit. His suit looks amazing. Like, I don't even know what it is. I just really like this. I just totally like this suit. I think it's like green and gold, but I don't know if there are some hints of yellow there too. And not only that, he looks like... Imagine if the missing link was a KamenRider. That. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and not to mention, Gills' transformation sequence too. I really like it. And so far, right now, about some stuff in the show, specifically the suits and whatnot, like, but Gills' transformation into becoming Gills, I actually dig it because it's white light. Rio's here, and Gills is stepping forward, like he's saying, "I got this." And then KamenRider Gills. And so, transforming into Gills scares the girlfriend off and makes her break up with him after spending all that time. Oh, I remember this. After spending all that time saying, "I'll stand by you no matter what," crap, she breaks up with him. You know what? I don't remember your name, but shame on you, okay? Just because he's a mutant transforming KamenRider doesn't mean he isn't human. So they break up, and Gills, I think he's better off without her. But still, Gills goes off after and kills the monster who murdered her father. 1, by fighting like an actual wild animal, and 2, his rider kick. His rider kick is an axe kick, like in the air, and once he comes down, he's stabbing you with the heel of his foot until you straight up explode. That sounds epic. It's probably because nobody kills anyone with just energy slashes yet. So still, you see someone stabbed, you actually see them get stabbed and die there. Still brawlness from Kuga. And with that said, I still like it. And one more thing about this episode. There's a science experiment that creates a baby that wasn't born through sex because Powerpuff Girls logic want to make a baby, sugar, spice, and at the end are near music playing whenever this thing's on screen. So a baby comes up and out of nowhere in a science lab and grows up in the span of second by second. And more on that later. And so, in terms of story, not a lot involving Shoichi happens, but stuff with the G3 department goes on. Now, episode 7, I now have an opportunity to talk about a character and Makoto's police rival, Toru Hojo. And turns out, I actually know this guy. His actor is Jun Yamazaki, who later plays the Centipede Orthonaut in Fies. And boy, was he an asshole there. And he is an Agito because he, and not his actor, but his character, is a condescending, snarky, narking, tight ass, butt kissing little fucker who spends all of his time messing up the G3 system and gets removed from the program and replaces him only to have that blow up in his face. He was pretty effective the first time he was G3 though, but he cowered out and said, fuck this. Like, I almost didn't want to forget this thing that happens and say around this time. Oh, wait. Yeah. There's a man. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I wrote these notes ahead of time while I was still watching the show, but yeah. There's a man that co-signs. There's a man that co-signs along with the DNA baby. That's a grown man. That's a grown man now. But to which came out of nowhere. But he's a man who wants to learn more about humans. And of course, with how antagonistic the DNA being is, he's gonna focus on the negative aspects. And now, I want to stop talking about the story for 2 minutes to talk about the vehicles in the show. First, starting off with Agito's bike, the Machine Tornado. It's a sports. Real quick, right now about motorcycles in general. And I don't know if I said this before, but I'm not particularly the biggest fan of sports bikes or modern motorcycles, just because most of them are nowadays are yet to lean up on them to have control. And I feel like with on bikes like that, it's just a chance of falling off. Like, I like old school bikes, like where you can actually sit back and drive from there. That's more my style. But the Machine Tornado though, but the Machine Tornado though, I can still dig this bike. Yep, it's not terrible looking bike. And in one episode, it can fly, well, technically hover, because it can turn into a hoverboard to give him leverage and more power for when he actually does a rider kick, because which actually makes sense because how do I describe it? Well, pretty much how I did. Like, while he's riding on the bike, he can use that extra power to get more balance and do a stronger rider kick that way to kill a monster. And now talk about G3's bike, the Guard Chaser. It's not bad, but once again, it's a huge bike, but it makes sense because it's a police bike, and it stores all of G3's weapons, by the way. Mm-hmm. Alright. Now, I want to take a break for a moment because I gotta do something with my camera, so I gotta end up taking the rest of this to a different location. So we will be right back. Oh, back to the story. There's a swarming incident around a freighter boat incident called the Atsukigo incident involving Makoto and Ryo. Because of said incident, Makoto saved everyone and was promoted to working with the G3 unit, and Ryo is connected somehow to this incident involving him becoming Gills. Now, first, Ryo's father was involved in said incident and is currently dead, but that's not on Ryo's mind for the moment because he's become Gills and it's apparently dangerous for him. He doesn't know how to live and what to do with his life. Also, another thing, anytime a new character with a connection to either Shoichi or Ryo is introduced, they get killed or just don't talk. Like, which brings me. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot to mention. Like, one thing we get from. Oh, I guess I can mention this now. The only thing we get involving. Now, about Shoichi and Mana, because they've been wondering about his past and his powers. The only thing that they get is a story about in Ikusabe that saved people from evil spirits from a long time ago. In Ikusabe, with the same symbol that Agito has of his horns on his head. Now, back to what I was going to say. Whenever a new character is introduced with a tie-in to Shoichi or Ryo, they either get killed or don't talk. And it's always a woman. Like, one woman could have known something about Shoichi's past. She shows up and she gets killed. Another woman shows up and doesn't talk, so forget her. And then another woman shows up with a tie-in to Shoichi and Ryo, and she seemed really important because she makes a phone call to someone about Shoichi, and then she gets killed. Let me fully explain this. The girl has blossoming superpowers and has been using Shoichi as a bodyguard, basically to protect herself from lords and others. And so, she's been two-timing both Ryo and Shoichi with each other, which is how they properly meet. And throughout this whole time, Aki, which is the girl's name by the way, she knows about the Atsukigo incident and what else? With Ryo. Now, she knows about the Atsukigo incident for Ryo and knows about Shoichi's true identity and never fully explains it. Why? And not to mention, Aki, I believe, has grown feelings for Ryo and went after a riot squad that was planning to capture Agito, by the way. Sorry for just bringing that up now. But instead, the riot squad found Gills and opened fire on him, and she assumed he's dead, and then takes revenge on them. But overall, at the end, the lords get to her while she's in her own mess with Shoichi and Ryo, Karma, and the police, and finally, she gets killed by one of the monsters. With all the work she was doing, just looking back on that now, sort of serves her right. Like, you did all that work, like, you had it coming. Just, that's all I can really say. Anywho, that's the only line that's not scripted. But Shoichi as Agito sees the murder and gets to her body, mourning, and then Gills shows up and thinks Agito murdered her. And then into the next episode, it becomes a three-way brawl with Agito, Gills, and G3. And G3 gets his helmet broken, that means it's serious. When a helmet gets broken, that always means it's serious. Unless it's Go-Onger. But so, just to make it clear, this is all just a big misunderstanding. And now G3 needs an upgrade. And so, from episodes 22 through 23 marks the debut of what you can say is G3's final form, G3X. So let's just go right ahead and talk about G3X. This suit alone, it's huge, but so much better. And I mean it. Like, honestly, I think I may like this suit a lot more than the regular G3 suit. Like, it's bigger and it just feels it feels much more evolved. And it looks like a legit RoboCop. And not to mention, it adds a couple more weapons to G3's arsenal. But besides that, this suit alone, it's not bad. It's pretty sweet. This looks like this looks like an actual person. This looks like an actual rider that you would call G3. Now, it's bulky but more mobile than the first suit, which is strange because I guess with how the first suit was designed for a slim/bulky figure, which could have left it to be more restricted, whereas G3X is bigger and offers more range, and also it carries a briefcase-sized portable Gatling gun, which can kill its enemies Rambo style. Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah. A briefcase that can become a Gatling gun. Enough said. It's just... That just sounds so freaking awesome. Like, a machine gun that can be... No, a briefcase that can become a Gatling gun. Rambo can carry that into an office job. But now, moving forward, I should say this now, before this point, the only thing that I took interest in the entire time was stuff going on with the G3 unit, because that's been the only thing in the most of the first half of the show had a progression of story to tell. Now, right next to the G3X debut is the debut of the V1 system, a second suit issued to replace the G3X, which was an idea of Toro's. I didn't mention it up to this point now because he sucks. But on G3X's debut, it goes out of control because it wrecked the V1 system. It kills a monster and tries to capture Agito, all while Makoto is inside because it's revealed that the creator of the V1 system, I believe, sold the A1 suppression chip, which keeps the wearer in control of the suit's power. I haven't really talked about that guy because, like every other old person in this show, he is an asshole. But after that piece was regained, Makoto becomes G3X again and is in control right before Shoichi was G3X for a day. Oh, yes, that actually happens, and it's in episode 24 and 25. Go check them out. So he can be the main and secondary rider at once. Yes. So now, notice how other people can be G3 or G3X and can kick butt. Like, it's like Fies seeing everyone be better at being Delta than actually Delta. Whew, this is a Toshiki and New Age show, people. I can come up with tons of jokes. Anywho. Episode 26. Coming off of the last episode episode 25, Shoichi regains his memory and goes out to find it by finding someone. He's regained a little of his memory at this point. But now, getting back to Rio, we learn that Gills is actually similar to Agito's power as he continues to search for answers. Now, on Shoichi's search, he ends up at a mansion and finds a picture of the man associated with the DNA being, with his name being Shoichi 2. Excuse me. And that just comes out of no. And now, the name of this person is Tetsuya Sawaki. And so I'm going to spoil this for the show I'm going to spoil this for the review right now, because this is something we learn later. Let's see here. Now, okay, here's what the fact is. He died, and the DNA baby revived him and made him his missionary to study humans. Oh, and they meet at his mansion to talk about Shoichi's sister, to which he now learns that his sister is dead. Matter of fact, his sister died a long time ago. She was one of the first people with supernatural powers and committed suicide when the power got to her head, which explained how he is in attitude. Now, just to get off a plot for a moment, I'm going to... I can talk about this episode first before the other thing. Now, get off a plot for a moment. This later part of the show, this is the part of the show where the latter half, like once the G3X gets introduced, the show starts getting a lot more interesting. And finally, it's where it hits its mark of starting off interesting stuff with episode 27, where it's a Rio focused episode, and it's actually pretty tear jerking. I mention this now just so I can take a break from the story. Where in episode 27, first of all, there's this kid and who's running away from these two adults because his parents are dead. Matter of fact, this episode is the day of both his parents' funerals. Like, his parents died protecting him from a monster, and his uncles were the one picking him up for the funeral. And as he spends most of his time with Rio, because he just wants to escape the reality of the fact that his parents are gone, this kid... crap. But you get what I mean. This kid, for a one-off character, that's tough. That's actually kind of heavy for a kid. Like, you want to sympathize because this is just a one-off character and a child for that matter. And it's just you can't not say that's heavy. It's like, this is the antithesis of every single episode of Zoo Ranger constantly like being about some child of the week, and they don't even matter at the end, or at least to the next episode, because it's some other kid. Also, quick note right now, I forgot to mention, like, Agito's... I didn't forget to mention, now I can just say this now, Agito's power-up form, Trinity form, which is when he has the blue and red shoulder pieces on together. Surprised they didn't make the chest purple. But anywho, yeah, Trinity form. All it does is leave me with the question of, is it possible to dual wield a sword and, I guess, spear together because he can do that. That's pretty much the purpose of that form, for the purpose of him being able to dual wield weapons. But besides that, it's not bad. It's just his base form with the two colored shoulders, basically. But now, episode 30, Mana gets kidnapped, and Shoichi, our hero, is a fucking idiot about it. You were there. You saw her. You saw what direction she took and saw a car speed off. Why do you take so long to realize that? What sets you off for that matter that will make you realize everything right away? So yeah, this is something I've been planning to mention now that it finally has importance. Mana's kidnapper is one of Tetsuya's followers. Up to now, Shoichi's ability to become Agito has been a mystery, and what really Agito is a type of supernatural savior that possesses a power to do good, and such more powerful Agitos are the survivors of the Yatsugo incident, and so on. And so, the reason for Mana's kidnapping was so that Tetsuya could use her power to bring Ryo back to life, because he got killed in some whatever accident or something. I sort of don't recall that happening. But anyway, Tetsuya brings Ryo back to life, and Ryo and Mana get connected, and Mana gets founded, but wants to stay away from her family to keep them safe. But at the end, she returns home anyway, in 2 episodes later. Now, episode 33. We finally, more or less, and it takes only 33 episodes and 24 episodes left to finally meet, you could say, one of the villains of the show. It's one of the higher ups of the overlords. Oh, the EL lords. And there are 3 overlords based on the different elements that correspond to the types of monsters we've been seeing up till now. So the first overlord we meet is the L of the water, which is a dolphin-looking guy that's possessed this girl there named Matsumi, one of the Atsuko incident survivors. Now, he's possessing her consciously and has been killing incident members left and right. As soon as Matsumi realizes that the L of Waters has been possessing her and she's been the one out killing people, she served her purpose and she dies. So yeah, the more I go through this, the more I think about the kill count in this and in Kuga, how Kuga's murder rate was legalized pot in Colorado high, and it's subtle because the monsters of the show aren't killing for a game. No. So yeah, multiple Agitos and victims with the potential of becoming Agitos are the ones that are being murdered. Nothing's at random or set up to be categorized. It's just you find one, you focus on them. That's the way of the game. Now to talk about episode 33 in actual detail, meaning what happened to the episode. Ryo and Shoichi discover each other's identity, include the air about Aki. Although Shoichi's in shock about the L of the Water himself, and him and Ryo become quick friends. And to be brief about episode 34, we now get our mid-season form, Agito burning, with with it, Shoichi just beats the monster in one hit, and then it retreats to fight for another day. But yeah, Agito burning form. Let's talk about this form. This form is awesome. It's huge. It's buff. It literally killed someone in one hit. I just love how this form looks. It's going to wreck you, and it doesn't care. Although I will admit this though, it's pretty random how this form just debuts because it comes literally out of nowhere. It's like watching this episode, seeing everything that happens, then Shoichi comes in, new form. Like, what? Like, how? You know what I mean? Like, this literally comes out of nowhere. It's so left field. But this form alone, it still does look good. That I will say. And apparently, it came out of nowhere because Shoichi has the power. Like, he's an Agito that will constantly evolve. So, and as for episode 35, just to add on to the new friendships and new form, guess what we also get? A new writer / a new... Shit, I spoiled it. Yeah, we also get another writer for this show, Kyoru Kinyo. And at first, when seeing this episode, to quote Shinta Reviews, "Who the fuck are you?" This is not only a new character, but a new writer, to which all are getting in this late in the game. Where the fuck have you been? Doing what? Showing up until now? I'm the only one to be I'm only one to be critical of work depending on the degree, but to show up this late, maybe if Kyoru had shown up in, say, maybe the 20s, just looming around for a bit, and revealed himself then, it wouldn't feel so overwhelming. But instead, like, when I was watching this episode, I was getting my hair done, and seeing just some random dude come out of nowhere, I just went, "Who the fuck are you? And where have you been?" Anyway, but episode 35, he comes out of nowhere, like, that's mainly it. That's his introduction. He literally comes out of nowhere to be a new character. Anywho, whatever. KamenRider, another Agito. Let's talk about his suit quickly. It looks like it looks like a Zio, another rider version of Agito. Ooh. Yeah, that. It looks like a Zio, another rider version of Agito. To which, yeah. But still, the suit alone, though, it's interesting. That's all I gotta say. Oh. Now for some history on Kyoru. He's a surgeon with a backstory of losing his little brother who froze to death. The entire body was no good except for his arm. And Kyoru over here, Kyoru, let's see here. He lost his little brother because he froze to death, And Kyoru just lost his arm entirely. And while Kyoru is still alive, they decided to cut off like his brother Masato's arm off, and then stitch it back on and give it to Kyoru. For Kyoru coming in so late, he socializes with Makoto, and they get along, and Makoto he turns into OMG Senpai Notice Me, basically. And so now, Kyoru is on everyone's radar. He's on Ryo's radar because Kyoru then goes crazy and tries to kill Ryo because of his... And he also on the police's radar because he is now an acquaintance of Makoto's, and Makoto's on the police, and he saw Kyoru transform into another Agito, and just says flat out that he's Agito. Well, he assumes that he's Agito. And when I read that subtitle, I just thought, you've seen him before. You know what ground form looks like, so why is your brain on backwards? Oh, and episode 37, we also get our second final form, Agito Shining form, which also literally comes out of nowhere. And it's not worked up to it. There's nothing special appears before him. He just sheds off burning form and goes straight to Shining. So, Shining form. I'm Agito Shining. Honestly, this is my least favorite suit throughout the entire show. It's less... Here's the thing about this suit. Like, I just don't like... And here's the thing, too. I'm just now starting to get into Ultraman. But when I look at this suit, I just don't like red and silver together. Not to mention... It's not just red and silver, it's red, silver, and white. Like, to me it doesn't look good. And I'm looking at this, like, color scheme-wise. Agito, well, at least ground form is more... It's more royal. While Shining form, it's a lesser degree of royal by a straight up lot. And it's just, I don't know, to me it's just not good. But if you like Agito Shining, good on you. It's just not my personal favorite suit in this show. And it's just, And this is where it's just, Also, another quick fact. It's a final form where technically he transcends first from his mid-season form, even if it did happen once. Anyway, moving on. After we see Shining form, oh yeah, not to mention, one more thing about Shining form, he gets like these two swords he gets these two swords where the blade goes out to like here, and it's curved, and I don't like those swords. I don't like the fact that they're just, I don't know. I really just don't like those swords. I don't like them, like, at all. Anywho, after seeing Shining form, Shoichi goes off. Now that the monster's either dead or retreated, at this point, Hojo and company tail Agito and surround him only to see him de-henshin back in Shoichi. So now, Shoichi's identity is out, and they take him back to the station and pretty much get a confession and nothing out of him because Shoichi is Shoichi. So now, everyone that's in the loop basically knows that Shoichi's Agito, except for Makoto. Like, you see, this is why I like the secondary writer. Like, this is why the secondary writers shows. What am I gonna say? This is why. Okay, now I know what I want to say. Like, Makoto shows good aspects for me, which is comedy, because whenever Makoto and Shoichi are together, it's the funniest thing in the episode because they're Abbott and Costello. One's bumbling and the other's a jerk to them about it. And Makoto learns, like, first, he doesn't know that Shoichi is Agito, and he assumes it's like 2 or 3 different people. And once Makoto learns that Shoichi's Agito, once he comes to his rescue from Kyoru, who's been once again trying to kill a guy whose name I forgot, along with Ryo. Oh, here's the other guy's name, Kinjo. Anyway, while Kyoru's been trying to kill Kinjo and Ryo, who's taking time healing, once Tetsuya meets with them again and saves Ryo again by. Oh, also, I've mentioned it before. I mentioned it before. Like, Gills is technically an Agito. Anyway, how Tetsuya saves Ryo is by Kinjo sacrifices his powers to give to Ryo so that he can heal faster, accessing him also to his final form, Exceed Gills. Now, KamenRider Exceed Gills. This suit is not bad. It's green and red. I think he finally has like an insect motif. He's a spider because he gets the claws and everything, as well as some chain looking thing that's not a web. But yeah, Exceed Gills though. Like, he can go Super Dino mode, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good alone. I like it. It's fine. It's a good suit. I like it. Anyway, so Ryo takes Kodu down and is almost about to kill him, and the guy in Kinjo says, "No, don't." Possibly forgetting that he was trying to kill them. Oh well, this show was written by Inoue, so body of water you go. He really should have killed him so that he would have keep hunting him down. But instead, let's sympathize with another Agito and actually go and do, because Kyoru's problem is that he's stuck in the past and can't let go of the fact that he couldn't save his brother. And so he's gone after Agito because he's stuck in the delusion that the patients that he saves are his brother. And I have to get into it. That's pretty sad, because that's the cycle of grief not completed. The last step being acceptance. So, while trying to reach out to him, the L of the water has fully recovered, and all 4 riders go against him. Mind you, it doesn't last long, but it's still cool. And the only result on the good side is that Shoichi has fully regained his memory, and I mean everything. He's not acting like a different person, but he remembers his past. And he was on the Atsuki Go. He's one of the survivors. Now, episode 42, we finally get a plot. Let me repeat myself. In episode 42, we finally get the plot. There are 9 episodes left. Like, do you see the stretch? Like, you're better taking a slinky and straightening it to give my example and of what I mean. Like, there are 9 episodes left, and it takes up to now that we finally get the plot. Anyway, the actual plot is, long ago, there was a battle between good and evil, and it was with the 2 overlords. I think that the overlord of light and the DNA being, which is our main villain of the show, the overlord of darkness. Now, and this alone just got religious because it's gotten because the overlord of light, overlord of darkness, it's basically God versus the devil in a battle, to where at the end, where the overlord of, it's basically that, it's God versus the devil in a battle where at the end the overlord of light loses but has the last word. Before he dies, he unleashes the rest of his powers and spreads them all over like a meteor shower in the sky, proclaiming that even at my demise, Agitos all over will still be born. And at the Atsuki Go incident, that was a small demonstration of that event. The Overlord of Darkness, though, the Overlord of Darkness through the L of the Water reigns there to kill everyone. But before the ghosts, I assume, of the Overlord of Light tells him to transform and fight, it's very brief. And after that, that's the incident. And the Overlord tells them that you'll all eventually die. And that explains everything. And before I watched this show, I knew very little about Agito at all. And seeing this, for some reason, I am entertained. The powers and actions are actually part of a battle between good and evil on a realistic case, like God versus Satan. Speaking of which, I don't think I've really said a word about the main villain of the show. Now, thinking about everything up to that now, the idea of him, counts as scary, that he started off as a baby who grew into an adult, only to perform a rapture to purge the world of the chosen ones. And yes, that is a bit freaky. So, with that said, moving forward, the story of the Atsuki-go incident that causes Shoichi to get his memory. So yeah, Shoichi gets hit on the head and his memory actually comes back. Fact, just throwing that out there, Shoichi's real name is Tetsuya Sowaki, and which so happens, and the adversary, and like what I said, the other Tetsuya Sowaki, who's alongside the Overlord of Darkness, his name is actually Shoichi, and his role, and so yeah, he's basically Devil's Advocate. And so, he must have known about the Atsuki-go incident in advance and switched names or something. But so, everything's still also not out of the bag yet, because right now, I want to talking about the Atsukigo incident to talk about another subplot that intertwines with Mana and her living with her uncle and cousin. Now, need something to drink. So, 2 years ago, Mana's father was murdered, and up till now, the culprit hasn't been caught. And it just goes to show that Shoichi and Mana actually have a connection before they met through Mana's dad and Shoichi's sister. They were student and teacher together. Like, Shoichi's sister was an Agito and a student of Mana's father, who was a college professor studying supernatural powers. And apparently, for her to commit suicide, he must have done some horrible experiments on her. And Tetsuya was also a professor there with a relationship with the sister, which explains why he tried to save her, because she actually kills Mana's father, and being so guilty and blaming her powers for the accident, she could not live with the fact that she just killed someone and took her own life to atone for it. And once Shoichi learns about this, like, he can't deal with it and goes through what his sister went through and blames the powers at the worst time, because the Overlord of Darkness is now taking action himself, and he steals and has been stealing Ryo's and Kyoryu's and then Shoichi's powers so they can't transform. And how exactly do they get their powers back? Shoichi runs up to him and punches Satan in the face. And it would be badass, but how many times have you seen some dude or whomever runs up to punch someone in the face just to do sex machina the situation? Anyway, it just happens. It's sort of unfortunate. What sucks is that I would have rather had Mana contribute and actually have her give up her powers to Shoichi so that he can transform again. But I don't know about Kyoryu and Ryo, but whatever. They all have their powers back, and the 4 riders take out a monster together. Awesome. 7 minutes later, a moment of reflection, back to the 3 of them. Shoichi, Ryo, and Kyoryu, without their powers, have monsters spawn from the Overlord of Darkness and are on their tail. And Kyoryu actually gets headbutted in the chest, and apparently it was one headbutt that was fatal enough, like maybe in the ribs or the heart or somewhere. Either who, Kyoryu and Ryo are at Koryu's home. He asks for a cup of coffee and then just dies on a couch. What the hell, man? 13 episodes this guy lasted, and he just dies on his own couch. Shades on, dead. God damn. If only he had waited like 38 more episodes and he would have upgraded to dying on a park bench. Toshiki Inoue joke, because he also wrote Jetman. And now I feel like a sick human being. Episode 47. Just get your mind off that. 1 month later. since Kyoto's deaths, like unknown sightings have gone down, and the police decide to disband the G3 unit because the old people in this show are once again assholes. And in the last 3 episodes, like just everything just dies down. Shoichi and Ryo move on with their lives. Mind you, their enemies have yet to be defeated, and they know this. But throughout this time, just nothing really happens that's noteworthy. Speaking of which, the Overlord of Darkness now refocuses his goal on doing a hard reset on humanity, and now feels that since and now the Overlord of Darkness, he now wants to destroy all humans, feeling that he's been betrayed by them. Mind you, the humans that he's talking about are the ones that are former Agitos. But we have 3 episodes left, so screw everything. Two new L Lords are spawned or go about killing Scorpios to contribute to the plan of something involving constellations and just I have no idea. But screw it, we're almost done. Episode 51. Like what I said, nothing really happens. So, episode 51. After beating one of the EL Lords, Shoichi as Agito sees the L retreat and follows him back to the Overlord of Darkness. Seriously, why didn't he just do that before? Anywho, Makoto's been transferred back to his hometown department, with only Ozawa sending him off. Has anyone else not realized how great of an employee Makoto is and only had one person tell him goodbye? Jesus. Anywho, blah blah blah. Makoto stays instead, and him and Ozawa raid the G trailer with Omuro and Hojo on it. I'm not kidding. That actually happened. And Ozawa even holds Hojo up at gunpoint. Is there a certain what type of crime is that considered? Because I've looked it up. Well, I've tried looking it up, but even I couldn't figure out how to describe it. But anyway, it's the final battle, so let's bust out all of the final forms. Agito Shining, G3X, and Exceed Gills versus the L of the Ground and the L of the Wind, with the Overlord of Darkness doing close to nothing. Actually, he's preparing the stars shaped in the Scorpio constellation to create a solar flare to kill everything by laying down and becoming an orb that flies in the air and Rider kicked to death. That's all it takes to beat the final antagonist, everyone. Just jump into the air and kick to death. I'm getting flashbacks to Change Man. But I'll give it this though. The explosion looked big enough for 2 people to get caught in for you to really believe that Shoichi actually got killed in the explosion. Now, the Overlord of Darkness, on the other hand, I honestly do not know if he's dead or not, because we see him with Tetsuya, and then he disappears. Well, it just vanishes, saying, screw it, humanity will destroy itself anyway. And then, that's it for him. And since the Overlord is dead, his magic is ineffective, because then Tetsuya soon dies after. So, R.I.P. dude. Hope to see you later in Fies. I'm not kidding. His actor actually comes back in Fies. Anywho, just the last episode of this show it's pretty out of place, and unorganized because everything just happens after 3 episodes of nothing happening. Like, if this finale was picked up from episode, say, 46, with the notion and activity still building up, maybe I wouldn't come down so uninterested on how the show ends. Because first, Shoichi and Ryo get jobs, and then that's it, whatever. And just whatever with the G3 unit as well. And yeah, Ryo gets some love interest too. She dies. Didn't really bother to mention her because it happens. But that's also Ryo's catalyst for also taking part in the final battle. And so, let's get this over with now. 1 year later, after the G3 unit dissembled, Makoto went back to being a regular detective and cop, and Omuro's now a captain in charge of the new GS unit, probably still using the tech from G3, and Ozawa quits the force and becomes a university professor in London. Good for her. I always liked her. And she's always, I always liked Sumiko Ozawa. She's the genius behind the suit. She takes no one's shit. And especially towards Hojo, which, by the way, since this is the last episode and whatever, those two apparently like each other. I assume opposites attract. And I don't know, and at the end of the show, Ryo leaves and finds a stray puppy to raise, and Shoichi's alive and owns his own restaurant. And that's KamenRider Agito. Is it like Kuga? Not at all, to a point, and frankly, that's something I'll get into in its own separate video. But right now that since we're wrapping stuff up, let's talk about the characters. So, Shoichi, he's very like the correct, like he's a Gary Stu. I can't even, it's true. He's a Gary Stu. Like, he is so aloof of a character. It's just so but oddly enough, but he doesn't cross the line of annoying or irritating or grating. And at least I'll say this though, just he's an idiot, but he's not stupid. You can see from and you can see that in his range, he can realize an insult, and he can basically you can catch on to how you can catch on to him by how he acts to understand him. But Shoichi as a character, though, he's just so, aloof. That's all I can really say. And he's just aloof. Besides Gary Stu, he is aloof. And not just, and you can really tell he's a Gary Stu because he knows exactly what he does, and you can tell so much. I say that as if I'm mad. I'm not even really mad. I just don't. It's just when trying to describe Shoichi, I don't even know the words to use because he doesn't really bother me as much. It's just weird. No, it's probably just me. But moving on, Hikawa, our secondary writer. Honestly, he's most likely my favorite character because he's a good cop, he's a great detective, and he does what he can with what he has as G3. And not only that, he's just so damn funny. It's just, and he gets so up, and he gets upset at small stuff like immediately. Like if someone calls him something, he actually thinks about it. It's like like he would be good friends with Zuo the World for a moment, but he would still be the more positive one in that friendship because I like Makoto. He's a good character. He is a pretty dang good cop, and he's a good delivery guy when it's to jokes and whatnot. And so, respect. Next, Rio Gills. He's fine for the most part. I really don't have an issue with him, but I feel like I didn't really. I would. Like, I think I really don't really show much interest in Rio or his story really in the show. I don't think I really showed any real interest in it. But besides that, for a character, he's a good tertiary writer and he's a fine character. That's about it for him. I really can't think of anything else. Except for in the later half of the show, when everyone gets acquainted, he turns into a dick for no real reason at all. And so, next, KamenRider, another Agito, Kyoru. He came in insanely late, and I can't say that enough. He just came in way too late. And not only that, but for a character who came in way too late, like, this is the issue with some of those characters. They don't get a lot of screen time, and they don't get a lot of development. Koru, on the other hand, had all of that. He came in late, but he still got plenty of screen time and development and good focus on him. And so he's completely passable. Now, for a moment, screw it. I want to talk about Mana. She is not bad. No, I mean this. She's not a bad character at all. She's not annoying. She's not perky. She's not just the girl. She actually has depth to her character, and I'll take it. It's not bad. It's like she's not a bad character. I respect that. It helps the fact that she also is an Agito, and she's always with Shoichi, like, to learn more about his past, to which it also helps us learn more about her and her powers and whatnot. And with that said, I'll take it. It's not bad. She's not bad. Props up. Now, let's talk about the G3 unit. Well, I guess more or less Omuro and Ozawa. I like Ozawa, and Omuro's just there. Like, Sumiko, on the other hand, she is amazing. She, like, a word to describe her would be plucky, and I like that because she's the captain of the team, because she is the creator and the captain in charge of the G3 unit, and she takes no one's shit, and I mean no one's, not even the higher ups, to which she just wants to get loud at sometimes. And it's like, this is the type of character that you don't want to be the captain, but with how Omuro is Omuro and Makoto is more respectful and collected, she's the one to have an outburst and really stand up for her team. And that's pretty necessary as well, since Makoto can get discouraged pretty easily. Now, finally, I think I said enough about the Overlord of Darkness, but the final episode sort of brings it down for me about him, because the final episode, he's completely inactive, and it makes me reflect about the rest of this series with how completely inactive he was. Like, he had a good moment, and that was like once. After that, he was just defeated way too easily. Anywho, KamenRider Agito. Oh, which brings me to another thing. I'm going to try something new that I did today. As of recording this, I posted a question online of what are people's thoughts on KamenRider Agito. So I'm going to take a moment right now to read said comments. So, moving on. So, and this is on Facebook, by the way, on the group Tokusatsu Nerds, in case anyone's asking. So, Droopy Ruby says, he the man's. Alright. Who does he mean exactly? I have no idea. But Clifton Campbell, he says, my favorite writer. Next. Here's a back and forth going on by Robert Shaw and Zonga Fielding. Gills deserved better. And next one, Gills used to be one of my favorite writers. And then it turned out his actor physically abused his girlfriend. Yeah, that's some news that actually happened recently. Like, KamenRider Gills' actor is either arrested or something for assaulting his girlfriend. Next, Ankh Bujida Sonozaki, one of most collected season. Next, Emmanuel Caban says, G3X is my boy, and Zonga Fielding again says, one of my favorites. And that's it for the comments. Not a lot were said. Now, KamenRider Agito as a show, it's completely harmless. Like, though it's about / below average, it's not terrible by any means. But if one thing would possibly get on anyone's nerves about it, possibly, it will probably be that the story, like, the plot just comes in so late in the game that it might give you mixed feelings about it. Not so much me, because stuff then did happen. Because like what I said, once you hit the 20s, like, that's when the show started to get good and interesting. And I just locked on to everything that happens. But like I said, there's a good sense of mystery, and I like that, and the results of it are actually pretty dang good. I actually like the fact that the powers are actually God-given, because holy shit, something like that, and it's not bad. It's good. I just liked it immediately and thought it was a good plot. It wasn't anything too lackluster or anything at all. And with that said, KamenRider Agito, not bad. It's not the worst at all, nor it's really not bad. It's not the worst at all. I did not find myself hating it or anyone. There are very few characters that I did like, most likely being G3 and Ozawa, and everyone else was just okay for me. But those are my thoughts on KamenRider Agito. Whew! Alright. And And now, right before I close out the video, I would just like to mention once again the subscriber challenge of, if I get up to say 50 subscribers, my next review will be Chojin Sentai Jetman, another Toshiki Inoue show, and this is the one that brought him up to the forefront. But if I get up to 50 subscribers, I will then review that show, because next time I'm doing my first Ultraman Mebius. That's going to be fun, because I've watched a little bit of Mebius right now. And so, any thoughts I have on that will be in that video. And so, stuff to look forward to. Oh, okay, I'm still going. So, stuff to look forward to. 1, 50 subscribers and I'll review Jetman. 2, a video that I will do going on about comparisons and differences between Kuga and Agito. And 3, next time, in the month of March, I will review Ultraman Mebius. Till then, this has been KamenRider Blackman, and thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share this video, tell your friends about KamenRider Blackman, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.